there's one story that I just recently heard about your past that I think is worth talking about. It's you were an LSO in a pretty hair-raising and interesting, notorious landing of an A6 with a partially ejected bombardier. And I'd love to hear kind of the short version of that and what it was like. Because I mean, I've only read about that, obviously, and it was taught to us but what was that like being out there? I mean, surreal.
Yeah, and you know, to actually capture what you just said to me about how humble I was listening to you, and then this pass with the A6 and my experience as a landing signal officer, I really felt my role as a landing signal officer to be one full of responsibility, and I took it seriously, and I really enjoyed those pilots who understood the teamwork between an LSO and a pilot. And so it was obvious to me as the captain. I mean, I lived in y'all's shoes, and I know what it's like to debrief, you know, senior officers when they kind of come off, you know, like that. And so I respected the authority of the LSO. And I remember you as a team leader, Wombat, you come in and very fair. And I don't think I remember ever thinking that, you know, you guys were wrong. Basically, it's like, yep, that's what I saw. So you know, this pass, and it's humbling and interesting to me that they teach that at the LSO school. I think the nuance they teach the LSO school is there's paddles telling the captain what to do with the ship. But to get into
you're not wrong. And it's, I mean, that was a lesson I took away, in the fact that, you know, ultimately it's the LSO's job of the safe and expeditious recovery of aircraft. And sometimes the captain may not have the background, whether it's fixed wing or as an LSO or something like that. So you're not wrong. Yeah. That is something they talk about.
I didn't think that Captain Ellis didn't have the background, but he didn't see what I saw, and he wasn't thinking what I was thinking. Right. And so it's interesting for your listeners. I'll go back a way. So when I was in the training command, actually, I ended up meeting Commander John Bug Roach. And in July of 1991, I was the senior Air Wing LSO, so the CAG LSO on the USS Abraham Lincoln. It was her maiden cruise. And we'd taken Enterprise around the world, and then we went back out again on the Lincoln. So we were a little ways to the east of Singapore, hot day as it is in South China Sea, and it was about 1700, so the end of the day. And you know, we had just finished the recovery, just finished debriefing. Everybody in the ready rooms had gone up forward, and all of a sudden over the 1MC, you know, emergency pull forward, CAG paddles to the platform, you know, over the 1MC, and CAG paddles to the platform was off over the 1MC, you know, usually caught not ready to go or something, but emergency pull forward wasn't. So it was a little, and there was an edge in the voice. It's kind of, man, okay, that's interesting. And I can feel the ship is starting to turn. So I come up, he says, hey, paddle, ship's in a huge turn. I mean, we're on the turn, the tractors are getting the airplanes, and we're about the 4-wire, and he leans in and talks to my ear, and he says, we've had a partial ejection at A6. And I go, okay. And I'm thinking, all right, the BN's gone, the canopy's gone, the pilot's still in there, and he's probably going to have a hearing problem, you know, because he's flying a convertible, right?
Sure.
And then he talks on the rat for a minute, his microwave radio set connected with the tower, and he flips the mic up and he says, the BN's still with the airplane, his feet are in the cockpit. Like, whoa. And so that'll get your attention. So I go racing over
some things. Yeah, for sure.
I go racing over the LSO platform, and I go over there, and there's a young LSO trainee jumping up and down, EA6B guy. He's jumping up and down, going, nasty. Oh my God, thank God you're here. It said everybody from the Admiral and the captain on down has called me and asked if I can wave the airplane. And he's like, no, I can't wave the airplane. And so anyway, I go, good. And he goes, you want me to back you up? And I said, no, just, you know, stand over there and just stare at the foul deck, green deck light and tell me whether it goes foul or not once it goes clear. And so I took the pickle and the microphone, the handset. And for the listeners, the pickle is the button that you click to wave off people, where the wave off lights will go on red. And I walked out about 10 feet or 12, 15 feet in the landing area, and I start looking over at where this airplane was coming in. And it was coming over from my right-hand side, kind of angling. And you can see the wake of the ship is this big curve as we were about, I don't know, 120 degrees through this planned 180-degree turn. as the ship is going from the downwind back into the wind to get the winds right to land the airplane, which is why they're in the big turn, right? So I start looking at the airplane. He's angling over to make it to center line, and he's just winging the whole thing. I mean, he's on tower, and nobody's giving him any vectors, so he's coming over. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at the ship, and I'm looking at the flags and the wind, and I sort of look at him again, and right as he starts to get to the wake, I kind of lip lock him, and there's Keith Gallagher's, the BN has got a wonderful website, lists all this stuff, and there's a little audio of me starting to talk to the airplane and the tower talking to Mark Baden, the pilot, is angling the thing over, and I can see the top of the airplane's got like a block on. It's like there's something on top of the airplane. Can't quite tell what it is. As he gets a little closer, starts to cross the wake, and at about a mile out, I can see it looks like a cross. And the cross is actually Keith Gallagher's. So he's up about halfway out, and the cross is his arms are blown out by the wind thing. He has passed out. So what has happened here is the seat malfunctioned, and when they were doing positive negative G's to free up a frozen valve in the fuel store, seat malfunctioned. It rode up 18
Grumman
inches.
Aircraft, right?
Yeah,
Grumman.
there you go.
Just
Yeah,
troubleshoot it.
Yeah, troubleshoot by pushing on the stick.
Yep.
So he puts on a stick, seat broke, little metal thing that retains the seat to the pole that it's on. It rode up 18 inches, drogue gun fired, blows out the canopy. It goes out, pulls the main chute out, goes about halfway down. Seat comes out about halfway and then gets pinned back by the parachute and wrapped around the tail. Gallagher starts looking around. This is all after the fact, of course. Gallagher starts looking around, figuring out, my head hurts. What am I doing out here? And goes, oh my gosh, I'm ejected, but not all the way. So he tries to eject, lower handle doesn't work. So he reaches up to the upper handle, can't find it because of where he is. So he looks up and it rips off his helmet and mask. Oh. And so now he's got, 250 knot air going down his face. Yeah. And so he asphyxiates, passed out.
Sure.
And so Mark starts coming over, and about the time he's trying to catch up to the center line, because we don't land airplanes in a turn, as some of your listeners know.
Sure.
I just start talking to him, looking at the signal flags, and then figuring out, as soon as the crosswinds get within what I think is limits, I'm just I'll take the airplane. So I tell the captain 3 times to steady up. And in this big God voice, Captain Ellis comes, steadying up, and then he did a real good job, steadies up. And then I just lip lock Baden all the way down into the wires. And I wanted to land him before the 1 wire. He wanted to land before the 1 wire. and so we both basically dropped the airplane right before the 1 wire, and the hook it bounces like A6s do. Yeah. The hook skips to 1, the 2, and the 3, and I'm yelling attitude about 4 times, and he grabs the 4 on the rollout.
Center line. On center line. Little right for lineup. Don't go high. Don't go high. Attitude.
Oh. And when the airplane crosses the ramp, I can see Keith Gallagher's face kind of looking down at me. Yeah. You don't ever see an aviator live with a bare face or a bare head unless you're dicking around over Iraq or something, without your mask on or whatever. But anyway, there it is, and I think he's dead. I mean, I just see this face, and I think he's dead right there. And then as he goes by, the orange panel of his parachute was wrapped down the fuselage, and I think that's blood.
Sure.
And so it's just like, oh no, and this feeling, that just awful feeling. So they roll out. I kind of drop everything. Everybody's running to the airplane. Air boss is screaming, get out of there, get out of there. So I just kind of trudge down to the VA-95 ready room and go, man, that sucks. And the skipper goes, yeah, it really does. He's down in medical getting sewn up. And I go, he's alive? He goes, yeah, go down and see him. So I go racing down to medical and get down to medical down there. And Baden's leaning against the door, and I hit him on the shoulder. Hey man, his eyes are big as saucers. He's kind of sitting there. Keith's laid out on a examining table. He's getting sewn up because when thing went through the canopy, all these like canopy shards were sticking out of the windscreen area, right? Yeah. So he's a couple of inches from these shards, and so when he trapped and he kind of he falls forward. He was held in by the parachute basically, and the risers are holding him back to the tail. So he falls forward, and one of those things catches him right in the armpit there, and it cuts his underarm. So they're sewing him up. And he's all beat up. He's all, black and blue, and his eyes are all puffy. And I'm leaning over, looking down at him, and he goes, hey, Paddles, I go, hey man, what's up? I mean, oh my God, you know, and he goes, what did you give my pilot for a landing gear? And I said, I gave him all calendar line, of course, because he did what I wanted to do. And he goes, now remember, Keith passed out like at 4,000 feet over. So he has no idea. He's like, bang. Next thing he remembers, he's on deck sitting there.
Sure.
He says to me from the table, no kidding, I'm not making this up. He says, from where I was, he was high all the way.
And that, sir, is why I'm happy that I got these wings, because that is naval aviation. Yeah.